How's it going, Internet? I'm Ricardo. This is another TikTok, and today I'm joined by my good friend Telthezard, and we'll be talking about kind of a variety of things having to do with the world of music and streaming, things like that. So, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate you being here. Let's start off with tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do.
Awesome. Thanks for inviting me. It's awesome to be here. I'm from South Africa, Port Elizabeth, and I'm a musician and also a music educator. So I'm currently doing my master's in contemporary music for music performance. And I've done my diploma in classical music. I did my my BMa's degree in jazz music,
Wow,
and I really enjoy contemporary music because I mean that's the way that we're moving towards. So it's quite cool.
awesome,
And also, I do content creation. I'm a gamer, and yeah, that's about it.
sweet, sweet. Um, so I've always wanted to ask this, and I feel like it's like only a little bit off topic, just a little bit topic. But how'd you come across your username? How'd you get there?
It was actually it's from I used to play World of Warcraft,
Mm-hmm.
especially it was Warcraft 2 and then Warcraft 3, and there was a character called Telthezard, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the orcs. And I'm not a Horde fan. I'm more a Alliance fan, and kind of gave it a elvish spin. So Telthezard is actually a night elf druid.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that's where it's 10 years. So I just like it took off again, starting with the streaming, and I needed a alias.
That works. That's awesome. I'm sure we'll get into WoW and all the the gamer aspect in just a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But I'm also really interested in your experience with music, right? And all the stuff that you're doing with music. So, what got you into pursuing a career in music and like working with it and things like that? Is it something you've always known you were gonna do, or is it something you came across not too long ago?
Yeah. Well, my family is like really. I would say I'm the least talented in the family because my mom used to sing in church. My dad can play basically any instrument, from wind instruments to I don't know if you know what the concertina. It's like we call it the Christmas worm. It's like a little thing that you. It's like a piano accordion type of thing.
Okay, I have to
It's
look it
quite
up for
difficult to
sure.
play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Christmas
And
worm. I like that.
yeah. And my brother, my oldest brother, used to. Well, there's a kids choir called the Drakensberg Boys Choir, and usually it was boys who really sang high soprano voices, and well, later on, singing with the family, and I was always experiencing music and involved with music, and later on, only like after school, started well, enjoying performing and really going out there. And also becoming a music teacher. Well, at age 30, I only started studying formally, so
Hmm.
so that's something different. But I've been performing at festivals, and being a recording artist and being involved with bands even before I did my formal education.
That's awesome. And it's never too late to really get started, right?
That's
Uh,
true. That's true.
and who knows? Maybe I'll join you when I start reaching a little bit. That's actually not too far away. That's like 5 years away. I'm an old bag of bones. I'm trying to get there.
You can do it. You can do
I
it. I'm going
feel
to keep you accountable.
yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. I feel like the Christmas worm coming at you. That's the first thing I'm gonna try to tackle. But so I know that, like you said, you're getting your degree and you started practicing formally and all this other stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but you also mentioned you're doing content creation. So what's it like to
Yes.
stream music on Twitch?
Well, if I can say where it started with the streaming on Twitch, basically with lockdown, we all the music teachers kind of had to move online. So I was looking for something to build up some form of experience, trying out different platforms, from Discord to Twitch to YouTube to Facebook, Zoom, all those platforms, trying to work out what would be the most convenient and what would work with music. Often you find with one of the platforms, it has like a noise cancelling option, and it's usually because it's almost as like a speech prediction type of thing. So it's
Mm-hmm.
mostly for speech and not for singing or for any other instruments. So what it does when you play organ or you play piano, it kind of takes the drone away. So you
Wow.
struggle to perceive pitch and all that. So Basically, Twitch was one of the platforms that I learned a lot. You know, looking at other streamers and musicians, and seeing what they do and what they use. So it was more of a research type of thing. And then later on, I joined up with an awesome team, and the rest is kind of history. It's just been something, and I've always enjoyed games, and thinking, you know, as soon as you start getting involved with people, especially with mental wellness, and you know, being in the situation where you're in lockdown, where me as an extrovert, you know, I enjoy being with people, and now all of a sudden you confined to four walls, and you only see the people like your family, like your close family, like your mom and your dad, or brother and sister, and not really seeing your friends and being able to hang out. This opens up a new way of actually communicating, because I mean, you're sitting on the other side of the world, and I've got a new friend. I can chat to
Yeah.
someone, and I can, you know, have a decent conversation.
Yeah, so that's, I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was gonna ask something else to follow up, but now
No
I'll
problem.
have to come back to it. But I definitely understand what you mean. Like, lockdown has affected a lot of people very, like, heavily, right, in varying degrees too, right. And I'm very thankful and I'm very blessed to be still able to do stuff like this, right, and hang out with people and connect with people. And I've met people that I would have no other way of meeting, like such as yourself, right, through mutual connections, these other things.
Yes.
And it's really nice that through Twitch, through some of these other platforms, right, the world can still be at your fingertips. And like recently, all of last week, we had a like super cold front thing here in Texas, and so we were like iced in everywhere. Like the roads weren't usable. A lot of people lost water. A lot of people lost electricity. Tons of people lost their pipes, like their pipes burst in their homes and things like
Yes.
that. So there was like tons and tons of just problems and things going on.
Yeah.
And again, I was kind of like, it was like double lockdown, right? Because not only could I not leave in general because corona and everything, but now like
You physically
even worse.
couldn't.
Yes, yeah, we physically couldn't. It was crazy cold. People weren't prepared for it. There was accidents, all this other stuff, and so I was like double confined. But again, I was lucky and blessed enough to have like power, and I was like I was visiting my my girlfriend for Valentine's Day, and we she has a PC set up, right? She recently got a PC, and you know, she got converted into being you know, quote unquote big boy gamer or whatever. And I just streamed from her PC, and I was able to still interact, and people that I wouldn't have been able to talk to normally, I hung out with, and I saw, and I talked to, and it was really nice, right? It made the whole thing a little easier, because although I had to worry about, you know, I didn't have water or something, we had like to use like some buckets of water that would filled up previously.
Yes. Melt some ice.
Yeah, a lot of people had to like take icicles and they boiled it and they used it to like to flush the toilet and all this other stuff, and but I didn't feel alone, right? Besides the fact that I was, you know, with someone that I cared about and things like that too, but I had access to my friends through this, you know, digital medium and digital platform. So
Yes.
to round back a little bit more to streaming music, there's a few
Yes.
people, and it's partially it's your fault and Guava's fault too, our mutual friend Passionate Guava, because you guys were streaming music, and then I think you guys were hosting, or you guys something happened. You guys pointed me towards some other few people that also stream music, and there was multiple nights where I've just stayed up and I'm like, I should sleep or something. And I just sit here and just stare at someone doing music on Twitch. I'm like, but this is really nice. And it's just like,
It's amazing.
yeah. And I just sat there, and I've been surprised more than once, especially when we got into when I first discovered that streamers on Twitch use the looping method, right? And I'm just like, what looping? What is that? And then I hear them, and then I hear it recorded, and they're playing with the recording, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And you know, I've heard some of my favorite songs in beautiful renditions. I have a habit of always, if they're taking suggestions, I pretty much always suggest the Rainbow Connection song, sung by Kermit the Frog. But it doesn't have to. They don't have to do a Kermit the Frog impression. I just really like the song, and it's just an amazing world, right? And before there was the whole Twitch Sings thing, and unfortunately, I think that, you know, that program or service, and I thought it was really kind of not disappointing, but kind of sad, right? Because
Yeah.
I'd never seen this before, and I just got in touch with it. But whenever I watched and I saw those people, like complete strangers that just upload themselves singing so they can sing with other people, right? Share a
Yes.
beautiful pastime.
That's awesome.
It was just so cool to me, right? Because it's
Yeah.
brave and you're putting yourself out there. Because not everybody's crazy talented. Sometimes people just do it to have fun or to like share that
True.
they
Yeah.
really enjoy a particular song. Um, or do a bad Kermit the Frog impression. That would be why I would be there. But
I'll have to learn that song to to sing it
no,
to you next time.
I would my heart would skip multiple beats. Um, but so besides Twitch Sings falling in January and things like that, there was also the giant wave of like DMCA issues and things like that. Um, were you personally like heavily affected by any of this, or were there any changes you had to put in place in in accordance with Twitch changing as well?
Yeah. I think because of COVID and everyone being online, and immediately there was an influx of people streaming, and especially artists, whether it was visual arts or musicians, or they were looking for a different platform to actually express their arts and trying to find some way of getting an income. And because immediately, no, you weren't allowed out, you weren't allowed going in little groups. So restaurants were closing down. I mean, in South Africa, it was really terrible. We had alcohol ban and cigarette ban. So it's like they
Wow,
banned all the sins except sugar.
people were going
So I
crazy.
mean, yeah. So even though when we started opening up, they still didn't sell alcohol. So the venues where you usually would find your normal pub gigs or people singing, um, like religiously, you'll have people that will have their Friday, Saturday, Sunday gigs, and one of them, I had a Sunday gig that I used to sing at a hotel, and I mean, it's the last time I performed was probably in December,
Wow.
where we had like one or two shows, and before that was in March. So it was a huge thing. Thank goodness I'm a music educator as well, so the online teaching helped a lot. Now the main thing is especially with the DMCA strikes, what happens? It's not the artist, it's the record companies. So what
Mm,
happens is, and often you find that independent musicians, they use things like Spotify or Apple Music or DistroKid or CD Baby, all these different companies that kind of act as a publisher to make sure that they. In South Africa, we have something called SAMRO, so it's your South African Music Rights Organization, and they kind of look after the royalties. So if I compose a song, if I write the lyrics and the melody of the song, I can register it, and if you, for instance, had to sing the song, you actually have to pay a license to use my intellectual property.
mm-hmm.
So we have a general license for it's for radio, for broadcasting visual. Say, for instance, if I had to make a lyrics video and it was broadcasted on TV, and then especially in churches, if you think you have the band playing the music, then you have the music playing in the background when the audience starts to walk in, and then you have the lyrics on the screen for the congregation to sing along with. So they literally have three licenses that they have to pay annually. And then what happens is that you have to send at the end of the year or end of the month, you send in a set list to say what songs you've performed, and then the composer, lyricist, and then arranger gets a portion of that money that is according to the license. And it's not millions. It's really like a small amount.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like a hundredth of a percent of 1 cent. And now the thing is, the sad thing with the DMCA strikes, is with for me as a South African person, where broadcasting online is something that's really small and it's only developing now. Now, all of a sudden, I meet an international community, people from Sweden, people from England, people from America, from Australia. And now I'm like, hey, I'm Telthezard. I've got music. You want to listen to my song? And I play it, and then someone likes it. They play it to 10 other people and whatever. But now, because I stream it, it gets muted. So I lose out on that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a hundredth of a cent money that I could have gotten because of the royalties, but you lose out this whole opportunity of getting your music sent all over the world where people can listen to it. And so I think, in a way, it protects the artist, but it also it shoots the person in the foot, where it's they should rather, I think, especially with platforms. like Twitch, where you have subscribers and you have people that donate money and things like that, they already take a certain amount of commission. Why not take a smaller, like even if it's 1% of each sub, or or even if there's a fee that you have to pay to have a license to actually broadcast, because that's what in actual fact what we do. We broadcast music or content.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, somewhere along the line, information became something that you could sell, and it's not the informing someone. It's not a verb anymore, where it's something that you sell, and that's kind of the sad part. But there are so many ways to get around it, and and legally and illegally.
Yeah.
So it depends. It depends how you're going to work it.
Now, I think it's just, one, these record companies just might have never foresaw or foreseen this as something that would happen, and two,
Yeah.
Sadly, they may not even really care, which is really disappointing, because I think that this, right, even maybe what we're doing here is just going to become more and more prevalent and more common the further we go on, just because the internet, right, we're still kind of waiting for everybody to catch up to the same place, right, and use everything they actually have available to them. And like you said, in South Africa, streaming and things like that have just started to kick off, and it could be like that somewhere else too. And if we have all these hard set rules from like eras gone, right, then it's gonna be much more difficult for people who are just starting out to not only be aware of that, but to not fall into these traps or these mistakes, and it'll kind of inhibit growth if we're not careful. But I'm not a record play company, right? So I have no idea where to even start with that.
Yeah, and the thing is that with regards to what they do in South Africa, with licensing, I mean, often, how many? I don't know when you were born, but how many times, if you grew up with the era of mixtapes, where you recorded something on a cassette and you played it again and again, that's illegal, because you make an illegal copy of something that's been broadcasted on radio. And how many? I mean, I can still go in my cupboard and I'll find so many mixtapes that I've copied, and it's all unknowingly. So what happens is, in South Africa, we with SAMRO, they actually have a licensing department, almost like the licensing police, and they go around to venues. And usually, what happens, people who fill in forms to say that they performed, because the artist doesn't pay for the license; it's the venue that pays for the license. So now I go and perform at Dizzy Diners, whatever, and I go and sing one of your songs, and I write it down, and I get the manager to sign, and eventually it pops up. Then they say, "Oh, but this place doesn't have a license. Where's Dizzy Diner?" They go and visit them and say, "Hey, you've been having live music." I said, "Yes, we charge 50 rand a ticket or whatever." And I said, "It's actually illegal. You're supposed to have a license." And usually their reaction is like, "What?
Yeah,
what is that?" And then they educate them. They don't close the shop down unless the people are really arrogant and in a way of actually doing it on purpose, knowing that they don't pay a license and they're trying to make money out of it, because they're actually hurting the artists or the people in general. So what they do is that they actually inform and say, well, this is what you need to do. It's not as expensive as what you think. If it's like a fishing license or hunting license or something, it's actually way cheaper. But you're actually just acknowledging the fact that people, like musicians, are actually people who work and they don't just do it for the fun, and they need to be paid for their creative input or content.
And like you speaking on that part reminds me, like, I'm not a musical artist, but I do like graphic art and digital art, and I'm very involved in the world of 2D art and drawing and digital art and all this other stuff. And unfortunately, the starving artist, quote unquote, joke, or a trend is still prevalent, not just in music too, right? Like artists in general, there's still this kind of, I guess not stigma, but this idea of you don't deserve as much as you're claiming, because it can't be that hard to do, right? Or like the computer does all the work, so why should I have to pay you all this, right? And it just doesn't make sense to me. I often see people discussing prices for commissions, where it's like, what should I set my prices when it comes to commissions? Is it too high? Is it too low? And it's tough, right? Because you want to be able to garner an audience, people that'll purchase your product and request commissions, but you also don't ever want to sell yourself short, because
it's true.
What you do is important, and it's hard work. It's stressful, and a lot goes into it. This is kind of not when it comes to music and something like that, but it's something about setting prices that I feel was interesting. Recently, there was this professional video game player, right? They go out to tournaments and they're one of the best in the world for a specific game, and they opened up training sessions so you could do private tutoring one-on-one, and they got a lot of backlash because of the price they set out, because they were charging $350 an hour for 1 hour of the game. And a lot of people were really upset. They're like, how dare you? How could you? All this other stuff. And my initial reaction too was just like, whoa, that's a lot of money, right? Like I wouldn't pay that.
It does feel like it is.
But the other thing is that they can set their prices to whatever they want, right? Like if people buy it at that price, then I guess they
That's
true. They didn't make up it.
Yeah, it's like what's it, the demand, the availability, demand, what's it, the thing that they mentioned?
Demand, supply.
I think, yes, it's about that. Because at the end of the day, if you find, like I usually, well, in our community in Port Elizabeth, I always try to speak to people, because the thing is usually because you are, in many ways, you're kind of born with a gift. I mean, you're born with the instrument, and then because you're exposed to music, you have that knack to, because you listen, but the things you forget that you've been singing your whole life, and you might have invested in vocal training, or you might have your equipment. So what I usually say, and the thing is, in international terms, we're still very cheap compared to what you say, but you need to charge for yourself, because nowadays you can't, doing something free is not free anymore, because you actually need to get money for you to break even, because it's your gas that you have to pay, it's your food, your accommodation, all those type of things. It's wear and tear on your vehicle, wear and tear on your equipment, that type of thing. So you need to break that all down, and you need like a call out fee where you can say, well, this is what my free is. And then people can say, and then often you find in general where people would say like the charity events. And the main thing is that people only remember you a day or two before the event starts. Then they would say, hey, Telthezard, you know what? I see you're a musician. I've got this awesome exposure opportunity. And that's like the swear word. And then it's like, no, it's Friday. And so Saturday we're going to, tomorrow or the day after, we've got this event. And sometimes it's connected to real like causes. Like say, for instance, for like breast cancer, or for AIDS awareness, or things like that. And it's sometimes, because we're artists, we write with our hearts, and people manipulate in a way, and don't get me wrong, but it's not purposefully, but it is for a worthy cause. But then often I say, because they say, well, the newspaper is going to have this and your name's going to be on the flyers, then I say, but that's actually not true, because the newspapers needed to be contacted 2 weeks ago. You needed to get my CV in, so the only exposure that I'm going to get is the exposure that I give myself on the stage.
Yeah.
So eventually you sound like a nasty person. Then I would say, you know what? This is a brilliant idea. Let's plan it for next year. I'm so keen to do it for next year. Let's see if we can't get a radio sponsor. Let's get everyone, on board, and get the whole community involved, because sometimes people lack the knowledge to actually organize the event properly. So, you can't do it like a day or two before the time. And even one of these things, especially with lockdown now, most times you hear of nurses and the frontline workers who are suffering, because they right in front, getting they are exposed to this virus and all that, and then they expect the musicians to do a charity event to raise money for people. And don't get me wrong again. For people who've been working since the first day of lockdown, to ask someone who has no income to help them to raise funds for someone who's been working. So it's really a difficult situation. So now all of a sudden, it feels like the society is against the artist. And then it's like, but you're so heartless. How can you not think of the nurses? How can you not think of these people? And it's like, you know what? Do you know what you're asking me? You're asking me to actually use the opportunity where I could have made money to use what I've got and actually give it to you for free, and it's costing me at the end of the day. So it's a catch-22 with these things.
it has to be like weights and balances too, right? Because
Yeah,
like you said, right? It's and I agree with you. I think it's just the fact of, um, you can't continue to perform and do what you do if you get nothing all the time, right?
true.
And you have to set a boundary and you have to set consistency. And there's just again like this weird stigma against like how much is this worth? Unless unless you're like you, it's really weird to me because it's like there's these really popular giant artists that are making tons and tons and tons of money,
Yeah,
and they just exist practically, right?
yeah,
Like once you've made it, and you're just like a wholesale name, and you're gonna get tons of money. But then it's like someone who does equivalently the same thing, but just hasn't, lack the fame and fortune or whatever. Which
yeah,
at the end of the day doesn't really say how good of an artist you are, right? Like
yeah.
I don't think fame and fortune is like the direct indicator, right? So, and it's just weird. And you're asking this person to be like, oh, well, you're not, just because they're not famous or whatever doesn't mean they're not worth the money, or at least some money, especially some money, right? Something that they're comfortable with getting. So I don't know. That's really crazy, and I hope we get our stuff together.
It actually becomes like an insult towards the artist, and then the artist gets blamed. It's like it's because the person that approached you in the first place didn't think this through. And I mean, we're open to suggest. I mean, if in general, I mean, if you know what it is like to go into lockdown and to kind of try all different options. Maybe I should start teaching. Maybe I should do this. Or if you were in a full-time job that all of a sudden now there's no demand for it, because why do they need to put posters on like in the streets if you don't have cars driving by to see them? So they're going to try and save money. So often that happens, and people should just approach people and ask, like, we've got this function. What do you think? What can we do? And I mean, the musicians and the artists and people, you'd rather sit and make a team. And I think usually if one person gets paid, then everyone should get paid. If no one gets paid, then you say, well, let's do this. But you can still have a charity organization or event that's profitable, where the proceeds go to this charity, where everyone already, you can give them a reduced price or give them a discount, or we'll do it for cost or something, and you can arrange it, and then it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, because making stuff like this is hard, right?
Yeah.
And again, to kind of talk about this trope or whatever, the starving artist, and it's like
Yeah.
people will usually be like, oh, so you're gonna do music, you're gonna do artwork, oh, you're just gonna be a starving artist, and it's exactly that mindset that makes them a starving artist, right? Because if you believe that, right, if you already think, oh, you're not, people aren't gonna think you can make any money, it's because you're not believing that it's it's worth money, right? So it starts with us, and you have started, like, I guess locally is a weird word, but I don't know. I just feel like
It's like in your community, yeah.
And the world just has like this. It's not really twisted, but again, like, I guess I'm gonna say curious stance on when it comes to artistry, where they're at the top end. You have people that are glorified, right?
Yeah.
Like, these people are put on pedestals, and they have like practically worshipers, and people go crazy for some of these big wholesale names. And then you have someone, but the bottom rung is completely different. And it's so weird that there's an industry that exists like that, right? Where the gap is so monumental.
Yeah. Now, specifically also with the fact with lockdown, you'll find that a lot of companies have tried to help artists, to say, in this time, we're going to try and support the artist. So, but they have a set of rules that apply, and then as soon as you apply, and in this case, I've been really blessed because I could teach. So as I do music full time, but I'm not fully employed to one job. So with one of these, like, we have our national arts and culture department that thought it would be good to try and use governmental funding to support these artists. But the only people who actually benefit was the people who are up for, like, the main events, where they are signed to one company, and because they don't have entertainment. Now, the fact that I had multiple incomes, meaning that I still work 5 days a week, but I need 4 different jobs to be able to sustain one salary type of thing. So then they think it's like multiple incomes. Then the festivals that we were booked for, they weren't cancelled, they were postponed. So 2020 was postponed to 2021. But if everything was normal situation, we would have had a 2020 and a 2021. So now they say, any events that have been postponed, that does not get acknowledged as a cancellation. So for advertising purposes, it sounds good for event to postpone instead of to cancel, but they actually they really backstabbing the poor artists.
Because do you get
So
some sort of compensation if something's canceled, right?
yeah, but I couldn't apply for it because
Because it was
on none of
postponed.
the occasions. On none of the occasions I didn't, because the thing is I was a musician that received multiple incomes,
Mhm.
because I don't work for one company. There's very few artists that that actually work just for one company. I mean,
Mhm.
you sing at a wedding over here, then you sing at someone else's birthday party, then you sing at a festival, and each festival has a different organization. Then you maybe do one or two government jobs or corporate functions. Each thing is different, so you're working for 20 different companies at the end of the day. So that doesn't count. They needed to look at the freelance artist, where someone who literally lives from hand to mouth, and people who have to go to pubs to sing, and they work for tips, or they work for they get their plate of food and a beer an hour,
Mhm.
and then they get paid for it. So those people are the ones that really suffer. The not necessarily the people who sell. I mean, if you think like the Brendan Urie's and the Lady Gagas, they were
Yeah.
still selling albums,
Oh yeah.
even though they weren't performing. Not saying that it didn't hit them; it must have hit them really
Mhm.
hard.
Mhm.
But immediately they had the facilities to go online and do things like this, and then you get the DCMA strikes.
Yeah. It's just like they can probably afford this dip, right? And they have a
Yeah,
cushion, or they should, or whatever, or they have other
yeah,
support systems because they're so big. And the thing is that
that's it.
these people that pay at pubs or in the street corner and the plazas, they're just equally
True.
as important, right? They're part of the community. They're part
Yeah,
of these people's lives. There's, like you said, there's some people that go out to the pubs and things consistently, like every weekend, right? And
yeah,
there's like a familiarity and a kinship
yeah,
with live music and just and the people that perform things like that. So
yeah.
it's really unfortunate, right, that
And they're the
these
first
people are
people that
getting
are cut
overlooked.
because
Hmm.
it's seen as a luxury, because now it's they the company or the pub pays someone for music that they could rather put a CD on the background. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
And you try and understand, but then at the end of the day, it's also, what, like I also used to sing at a coffee shop, and I said to them, because they wanted to book me like for the whole year. They said, yeah, every Friday. So I said, you know what, Fridays are usually my corporate functions or whatever. So I have a friend that, if I'm like double booked, then I'll say, okay, well, I'm going to get my friend in, and so I would do a a no pressure audition, so they can see
Hmm.
the way that I perform, and then with a friend, with when we do like a duet or something, and then
Hmm.
let him do a few on his own, and then they can say like, no, cut him. Well, you can use them. So I had an arrangement for a reduced price, because they book me regularly. I'll sing every Friday, maybe for 2 hours, then they give me a plate of food, but I get my pay. And then if I have a corporate function that I really like could charge a lot, or where I have to do supplying of equipment and lights and all those type of things,
Hmm.
then I would get my friend to stand in for me, and it would be like a running thing, and it'd be okay. So, you know, often, and I said, let's do it a month to month type of thing, because maybe December is really good, and then January hits, and then you can't afford me. Then I'd rather have a friendship, and let's speak open and honestly, and say, well, maybe let's just do one Friday in the month, and let's build it up. Because the thing is, I also feel guilty if I perform, because there's a sense of feeling that I need to attract people to come to the shop,
Uh-huh.
but it's actually not my duty. But I can see, if there's one table and they just drink coffee, and they maybe had some French fries or something, that's not even going to cover your bill, like your fees, and then you still have to pay for the lights and electricity, and the waiters' salaries and things like that. And then on top of that, sometimes I get the tip, and then the waitrons don't get tips, so I feel bad. So you kind of, when it's busy, then it's like, yes, everyone's happy. So you kind of have that relationship with the store owner or the restaurant owner, to say, you know what, let's speak open and honestly, and let's make this work, because if it works for you, it's going to work for me.
That's awesome. And again, it's just like this whole world that most people, including myself, have kind of known and existed by this whole time. It's
Yeah.
peeling back the curtain a little bit. Um, and so I guess I wanted to. I have like a running. I guess from here on, it'll definitely be like a running thing where I try to say or try to end quote unquote end every episode because we might be going for a little while long. We'll see. But
Okay.
do you have any advice for the quote unquote struggling artists out there who may be listening? That not just, if you have something specifically relating to right now in the COVID situation, that's cool. If you have some advice relating like as a bigger picture, as a whole thing, once we get through this, and in the future to come, just anybody who's struggling out there with either finding their footing or figuring out what the proper steps are.
Yeah, I think with regards to everything, even in COVID or outside of it, I think a person should never be afraid to try things, even if it's new things, and and share your information. Speak to people who know better than you do, and see how they are coping with certain situations. Because I mean, even like in the beginning, like I started just gaming and using Twitch as a platform. Then eventually I found, okay, it felt like I hit a brick wall with, now I can't perform. This is the main reason why I'm using Twitch, because I want my music to go out there and people to support me. You need to experiment and try things and not just confine yourself to this little box. I mean, here, out of sunny South Africa, I've been meeting people all across the world, and it's really amazing, building new friendships, having the opportunity. I mean, I'm going to go to the US in August, if Lord willing. So I mean, there's so many opportunities that you just need to open your eyes and try to find the little golden thread in every little thing.
Awesome. And I feel like that's really important. One of the things that I try to live by is kind of why am I forgetting the phrase right now? It's trial and error. That's what I was looking for. Yes. Right? Like try things, put yourself out there. But more importantly, I feel like if you fail, learn from it. Right? Like I try from all my failures, and whenever I make a mistake, I try to take it, learn from it, so that if I am ever in that situation again, or if I'm trying again next time, I can build upon it. Right? And it's interesting you talk about finding someone better than you and talk with them, because that's like my main go-to when it comes to learning. I play a lot of like fighting games and like competitive games like that too. One of my favorite things to do is to play against someone who's better than me and to lose a lot. Yeah. I don't know why. I like winning a lot, but if it gets against someone better than me, I prefer to lose, because I feel like I always learn more from losing, until like I feel like I've grasped it, and then I like winning when I feel like I can do it. But
yeah,
I think it's very important to, like you said, to get in touch with people, to stay connected, to find those kindred spirits that may know more than you, or if someone has some advice, lend it to them, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So as we're going through, right, I think doing that is very important, like you mentioned. And I know that sometimes it may be an unlikely place that you may find someone better than you, or someone worse than you, etc. But sending a message, a Twitter DM, or a Discord ping, or etc. is free, and the worst that they can say is no, right? Like hey, can you help me out with this? No. Okay, cool, thanks. I did that once I was getting into storyboarding, and I was on Twitter and I was looking, and I was trying to apply for this internship with Netflix, and I just found some storyboard artists, and I was like, hey, I'm new to storyboarding. Can you help me? Can you give me some guidance, right? And a few of them were just like, oh, sorry, I'm busy right now, or they didn't reply, or something like that, or and I mean, that's what I expected. Like I'm no one, right? And I'm asking a stranger for help. So, but I was lucky that I did get one person who was like, yeah, sure, what's up? And so I asked them questions, and I sent them some pictures, and I said, hey, can you look over these? I'm trying to do this thing. And it seemed like as we went along, right, I noticed more of a reluctancy, in a sense of they maybe they didn't really understand what they were getting themselves into by giving me their help, right? Because I'm very specific in the way that I want help, and I ask a lot of questions, and I really want to make sure I know what I'm doing. And they have their own life, right? Yeah. And so eventually they're just like, hey, I can't keep doing this for you. I'm sorry, but here's the help. Here's what you need. You got this. You should do this thing. And I was like, okay. thanks for the help you gave me so far, at least, right? And
But it's
better than nothing.
Just appreciated the motivation and the encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's like, I mean, even off screen, when you sent me a mail, your questions, you answered them very specifically, and it's good to be structured like that. And I think the biggest compliment for someone being a mentor is when your student listens and they apply the things that you've taught them, and the student sees that it actually works when they apply it. I think that's the biggest compliment that someone can get. And like you say, sometimes you get shot down at where people say like, oh, I'm busy, but it's actually one of the things that I enjoy. I enjoy people asking me questions, because it's something that I studied, something that before I was a newbie as well. I didn't know, how do you start a music career? How do you do this? How do you get into it? And then as soon as people, with your experience, people ask you questions. It's like, well, don't do this. Rather do this. Or you've tried this. You can see that this didn't work. Let's look at something else. Or maybe what worked for me that doesn't necessarily work for you. So we need to approach it differently. Because in the old days, when people wanted to get that famous record deal, you basically recorded an album or a CD or a demo, and you sent it to a record company, and they would sign you because, wow, you brilliant. So now what all these competitions like The Voice and Idols and these singing competitions, what they do, they create an expectation, because now every second person, I have a dream and I want to share my talent and my story with everyone. And then at the end of the day, you're an actor. You sign up as an actor, and they sell your story. They actually don't care who wins because it's already sponsored by whoever. So they just need to make sure that it's like neck to neck or something, so it's like a close call. They have the two best.
And there's the movie magic and all this other stuff too.
Yeah. So those type of things. So when people ask you advice, then it's really I find it's really I enjoy it. It's I always say I like the honey around the mouth. Paint it. It's nice when people acknowledge it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely relate to that too when it's like coming to streaming or some other things. Or last night alone, like I said, I got into fighting games where me and my friends were playing this beta together, and we were playing together, and I, for whatever reason, had picked up this very quickly, right? And one of my friends has like no idea what they're doing whatsoever, but they're very enthusiastic, and that's just kind of how he lives. He's very simple in the sense of he finds joy in things very easily. And he was just kind of doing things, and it was kind of working. It wasn't, but he was very optimistic and very looking forward. And I had another friend who was closer to my skill level, but there was like a little gap between us, and I was just kind of helping them, like, hey, this is how this works in this game, and this we can try about doing, because I know what I'm doing, right, and I know what would work against me, and so I'm trying to help them learn what to do. And there was just a few moments, right, where they started picking up things, especially my friend who had no idea what he was doing, and they're just like, oh, I know what to do now, or I know I can do that, right, or like playing with them, I realized tons of things. I was like, oh, that's an answer that I didn't have before, and now I do.
You didn't think of before, yes.
And now I'm more prepared in the situation. And those are some of my favorite just moments, just collectively learning and collectively working together. But it also feels nice to be able to help.
In general, because you basically playing a fighting game that you baiting, you testing it. So you might, because of previous experience with games, you might find that you enjoy playing a ranged player or a melee, a warrior type of thing or something, and now all of a sudden you have to do something else because that's not available anymore. So then you have to, if you're used to playing a character that's ranged, now if you're melee, you have to be up against the enemy, or you prefer being at a distance.
Yeah.
So then you adapt or die.
Exactly, and it's it sounds harsh, but that's how it is. And then for me, it's like actually really close to what you said. I usually play like really big, slow, heavy hitting characters, and in this game, I'm playing someone that's purely focused on long range. Like they try to keep you out and keep you as far away as possible. And both of my friends play characters that are really good at getting in your face, and it's very scary. And although they aren't like, although I have like the advantage of like time or like slightly more understanding, it's terrifying, and I'm always on my toes, right? And they've taught me more than a few things to make sure that I can play the way that I need to be playing, right?
Yeah.
Yep, we lingered and we kind of swerved off in a different thing, but
Wanna go back to the music?
yeah. Just let's wrap up on the music real quick.
Okay.
So I guess to really finish up, tell us a little bit about the degree you're working on.
Okay. So, if you look at the traditions and in general music internationally, you find that there's a preference for your Western classical music, your operatic music, and your romantic. Because your Western classical music gets split into like 4 different categories. And so, if someone says classical music, it can either be the whole 4 categories, or it could be one specific.
Like an
era where
umbrella
it's
type
like,
thing, right?
yeah. So you have the classical era, like you have in art. So because it was marked when Mozart was born, and then the birth of the next artist. So they've kind of split it like 50 years or 100 years, depending on how long the music lasted. Now you find that there's a specific way that they would benchmark the music, the way that they would examine the music or test the music, and the way that it's taught. Now, with contemporary music, it's now just over 100 years, 101 years. So 1920 up, to contemporary age now. Well, we call it contemporary music. If you say modern music, it refers to Western classical music. So it's the abstract music. It's like really what they call avant-garde. So, but contemporary music would be like anything that you hear on the radio, and it's since 1920. Now, often you find that there's no benchmarking for that. There's no way of teaching it. It's just because it's something that it's often people who weren't even schooled at music would play. They taught themselves how to play the guitar, and they would sing, and then they write stories. So country, hip hop, now I can't think of anything else. Folk music, pop music, even electro. All these the rhythm and blues, all that is categorized as contemporary music. Now, South Africa is one of these countries that are a little bit behind. We're one of the developing countries. And the fact that you find that there's a lot of prejudice where you find in an institution, in a tertiary institution, where classical music always gets preference, and you find that they always get the bursaries and all those things. But now we're in a situation where, with lockdown, it actually pushed the whole thing where you can actually send your students backtracks, and they don't have to have an accompanist, where they're able to teach themselves, or they're able to download lyrics or use karaoke programs or something to actually learn their songs, record it, send it to the lecturer, and they can work according to it. So now what happens is the situation, we have more contemporary singers than we have classical singers. And so all of a sudden there's this need, and the industry wants it. I mean, the only time you really hear classical music on the radio is on a Sunday after church or during lunchtime or something. You don't really hear, like, when is the last time, if you can think of any operatic, whether it's instrumental, any hit that was in the last 10 years. I mean, you really have to think.
It's really like, I think of like on TV and like shows and stuff like that, they'll use classical music, or especially like things like the mafia and the mob and stuff like that, just kind of push the trope. But it just, in the wild, I haven't really come across it in a long time.
Because if you think like Josh Groban, if you think that's classical music, that's actually a crossover, so it's more pop. So even that is contemporary compared to it. So my battle has been trying to get contemporary music recognized. So my whole master's thesis is to prove that you have a different set of rules, you have different benchmarking, and a different tradition. My first recital that I did, I completely moved out of the university building, and I actually went to a church that was very charismatic, and the lights and the smoke and all that type of thing. So it was really a different vibe. And they put the lights off, and then so I invited the 3 adjudicators to that venue. And the first thing, because I could see when I started singing, the one adjudicator looked at the other, and I can't mention names, but he was our head of practical. And afterwards, I asked my supervisor, what did he ask? I could see he was asking me something. And he said, but why is he singing with a microphone? So I'm like thinking, we're in a building that can take about 2,000 to 3,000 people. I have to sing over a piano, electric guitar, drums, bass, 2 other backing vocals, a keyboard. They benchmark, or they measure against some older tradition or a different tradition. I mean, if you had to do like digital art, there's immediately there's the digitizing aspect where you take it from something that's been drawn on paper. You don't have that anymore. So why do you need to draw with like a pencil to draw a mind map when you've got everything on the PC screen? So there's something that you don't have to do anymore. Maybe you still do that.
Mm-hmm.
You might write notes and things on piece of paper because it's maybe the way that you were taught. But there's certain things that you don't use anymore, or that's not. I mean, with the effect that I had to send in a video, so obviously they weren't allowed to do any post production. But like in the main thing that you do have to change certain things. You have to make sure that the instruments reflect to what the event actually sounded like, because all the sound that you get in through the microphones or through the instruments going out through the speakers are different to what is recorded. So you need to have some sort of editing, take out the hiss or take out the buzz on the electric guitar or something so you can actually hear the voice come out. You're not going to use pitch correction or try and fix mistakes.
Auto-tune, yeah.
You're not going to do that. So there's certain things, but something that is in a contemporary tradition is that you do add reverb to a microphone, or you need to change the ambiance, because nowadays, these old cathedrals are the worst place to put in sound equipment. It has to go for acoustic sound, so where you can use stringed instruments, and maybe if you sing, it will actually carry the voice without using amplification. So to make a long story short, the main thing was that it's almost like I built up a little bit of a resentment against the attitude of classical lecturers, because they have the superiority complex where they have this godlike figure, or that music has become this thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that classical music has become the superior being. But yet, we're losing out on a completely like a huge industry. I mean, if you can think of the worst song that is really popular, and I mean, the main fact that they wrote that song, "What Does a Fox Say," is because
Yep.
they wanted to use the worst lyrics and everything, and it became a hit.
Mm-hmm.
So now the fact is, would you say that is better or worse than a classical piece? But can you write
The
a
two
song
different
like
things,
that
yeah.
to get the same? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, it does have entertainment value. So the way that we listen to music, each person has a different interpretation. I might listen to music because I enjoy the story, I enjoy the words. Some people might listen to the chord structure and think, oh, it gives me goosies. I like the harmonies or the voices, the a cappella type thing. Or the other one just wants the beat. They want to just have fun, and they don't care about the lyrics. So everything, it's like everyone gets something different from that piece of art.
I agree with you, and I agree with, like, there's different tools, there's different scopes, there's a lot of different. It's very different than it was back then, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how this all wraps up for you. And I know that I remember that, like, I listened to your performance that you did a while back. Is that still public? The one that you had to do for your examination? Or
Yes, we were only allowed up to 50 people
Mhm.
in a venue. So what happened is, I'm in Port Elizabeth, but we have a little coast. So I stay on a coastal city, Port Elizabeth, and also, historically it's called Algoa Bay, if you know any South African history. But then we have another international destination that's called Jeffreys Bay. It's apparently they have one of the locations with the biggest waves. So I had my and it's also like a little town. It's only like busy during December when we have our summer season, when people go to the beach and when you guys have snow. So during the build up, during spring or autumn, so I actually had it during a quiet period. So it worked out quite well where the restaurant actually had all the COVID regulations and all that, and we had a group of 50 people that could attend, and so we recorded the as if it was a live performance, because the main thing, the two recitals that I needed to do, the one I did 2 years ago, and the last year I did the one that was in Jeffreys Bay, is that it needed to be a public concert. So, and it's immediately, if you wanted to change academic syllabus, it takes 2 years to change that. So to take that rule out people, it's sometimes it's stupid, that the international pandemic doesn't affect these rules. So we had a public event with 50 people. Some people have events that are public and they only have the family there, so it's 2 or 3 people. So, we made it work. And I mean, we were sold out to the amount of tickets that were, and I was able
Wow,
to
nice.
stream it online, so I had an international audience. So it was really amazing, and to have all the support from a community that I've built up a relationship with people, and being able to do that. So it worked in the end. So eventually I got a distinction for my
Nice.
recital, so I was really happy. But they were really strict. If I looked at the comments, they were really, really, really strict.
Is there a way that we can? Is there like is this still on YouTube right now or anything like that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, I actually do.
cool.
I can send you a link if
Awesome.
you
I
want
will
to
put
check it
that
out. Yeah.
in the description so that all you guys that are listening can check that out too. Thanks for your time. Thank you for being here. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. It was very
It's such a
informative. It was very
pleasure.
fun. Make sure to check out Telthezard. I'll have Telthezard's Twitch stuff in the description too. I'll talk to you about any other things you want me to put in the description. I'll put those in there for him. But you can find all that information. We'll be there soon. You guys take care. Be safe. Have some fun. If you feel like you're struggling with music or art or anything like that, reach out. Talk to someone. You'll never know what you might learn. And until the next time, peace out.